welcome back to the Republican presidential debate on CNBC, live from Boulder, Colorado, at the University of Colorado. Senator Rubio. Wired magazine recently carried the headline, Rubio wants to be the tech industry's savior. It noted your support for dramatically increasing immigration visas called H-1B, which are designed for workers with the special skills that Silicon Valley wants. But your Senate colleague, Jeff Sessions of Alabama, says in reality, the tech industry uses this program to undercut hiring and wages for highly qualified Americans. Why is he wrong?
Well, first of all, if a company gets caught doing that, they should never be able to use the program again. If you get caught abusing this program, you should never be able to use it again. The second thing I've said is we need to add reforms, not just increase the numbers, but add reforms. For example, before you hire anyone from abroad, you should have to advertise that job for 180 days. You also have to prove that you're going to pay these people more than you would pay someone else so that you're not undercutting it by bringing in cheap labor. But here's the best solution of all. We need to get back to training people in this country to do the jobs of the 21st century. Why? For the life of me, I do not understand why did we stop doing vocational education in America. People that can work with their hands, people that you can train to do this work while they're still in high school so they can graduate ready to go work. So the best way to close this gap is to modernize higher education so Americans have the skills for those jobs. But in the interim, in the absence of that, what's happening is some of these tech companies are taking those centers to Canada because they can get people to go over there instead of here. But the ideal scenario is to train Americans to do the work so we don't have to rely on people from abroad.
Well, it sounds like you think Senator Sessions is wrong to believe there's enough abuse in that program that we shouldn't increase
Well, I
the number.
believe there are abuses. Those companies should be permanently barred from ever using the program again, and we should put strict standards in place to ensure that they're not being abused.
Thank you,
like the prevailing wage requirement and like the advertisement requirement.
Thank you, Senator Becky.
Mr. Trump, let's stay on this issue of immigration. You have been very critical of Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, who has wanted to increase the number of these H-1B.
I was not at all critical of him. I was not at all. In fact, frankly, he's complaining about the fact that we're losing some of the most talented people. They go to Harvard, they go to Yale, they go to Princeton, they come from another country, and they're immediately sent out. I am all in favor of keeping these talented people here so they can go to work in Silicon Valley.
So you're in favor of increasing
that? I have not been at all critical of him.
Where did I read this and come up with this that you were...
Probably, I don't know, you people write this stuff. I don't know where you...
I wrote this stuff. Let's just be clear. Let's talk again.
If I could say just one thing.
Yeah.
I am the only person in either campaign that's self-funding. I'm putting up 100% of my own money. And right now, I will be putting up a tremendous... So far, I put up less than anybody, and I have the best results. Wouldn't that be nice if the country could do that? But I will be putting up, tremendous amounts of money. Super PACs are a disaster. They're a scam. They cause dishonesty. And you better get rid of them because they are causing a lot of bad decisions to be made by some very good people. And I'm not blaming these folks, but I guess I could. Very good people are making very bad decisions right now. And if anything comes out of this whole thing with some of these nasty and ridiculous questions, I will tell you, you better get rid of the super PACs because they're causing a big problem with this country. Not only in dishonesty and what's going on, but also in a lot of bad decisions that are being made for the benefit of lobbyists and special interests.
Becky.
Mr. Trump, if I may just say, just a minute, Mrs. Figueredo, let me follow up on this for just a moment. You had talked a little bit about Marco Rubio. I think you called him Mark Zuckerberg's personal senator because he was in favor of the H-1B.
I never said that. I never said that.
So this was an erroneous article the whole way around?
He's got another gentleman in Florida who happens to be a very nice guy, but not...
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Somebody's really doing some bad facts.
Since I've been mentioned, can I respond?
Yes, you may.
Okay. The Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media, who every single day... And I'll tell you why. Last week, Hillary Clinton went before a committee. She admitted she had sent emails to her family saying, hey, this attack in Benghazi was caused by al-Qaeda-like elements. She spent over a week telling the families of those victims and the American people that it was because of a video. And yet the mainstream media is going around saying it was the greatest week in Hillary Clinton's campaign. It was the week she got exposed as a liar. It was the week that she got exposed as a liar. But she has her super PAC helping her out, the American mainstream media.
Senator Rubio, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Rick Santelli. He has some comments as well. Sir.
Senator Cruz, let's focus on our central bank, the Federal Reserve. You've been a fierce critic of the Fed, arguing for more transparency. Where do you want to take that? Do you want to get Congress involved in monetary policy? Or is it time to slap the Fed back and downsize them completely? What are your thoughts? What do you believe?
Well, Rick, it's a very important question. I've got deep concerns about the Fed. The first thing I think we need to do is audit the Fed. And I am an original co-sponsor of Ron Paul's Audit the Fed legislation. The second thing we need to do is I think we need to bring together a bipartisan commission to look at getting back to rules-based monetary policy, end this star chamber that has been engaging in this incredible experiment of quantitative easing, QE1, QE2, QE3, QE infinity. And the people who are being impacted, a question that was asked earlier, Becky asked, was about working women. It's interesting, you look at on Wall Street, the Fed is doing great. It's driving up stock prices, Wall Street's doing great. Today the top 1% earn a higher share of our income than any year since 1928. But if you look at working men and women, if you look at a single mom buying groceries, she sees hamburger prices have gone up nearly 40%. She sees her cost of electricity going up. She sees her health insurance going up, and loose money is one of the major problems. We need sound money, and I think the Fed should get out of the business of trying to juice our economy and simply be focused on sound money and monetary stability, ideally tied to gold.
Senator Paul, the same question to you.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Ted for co-sponsoring my bill, Audit the Fed. And I think it's precisely because of the arrogance of someone like Ben Bernanke, who now calls us all know-nothings. That's precisely why we need Audit the Fed. I think it is really a very much a huge problem that an organization as powerful as the Fed comes and lobbies against them being audited on the Hill. I would prevent them from lobbying Congress. I don't think the Fed should be involved with lobbying us. I think we should examine how the Fed has really been part of the problem. You want to study income inequality? Let's bring the Fed board and talk about Fed policy and how it causes income inequality. Let's also bring the Fed forward and have them explain how they caused the housing boom and the crisis and what they've done to make us better or worse. I think the Fed has been a great problem in our society. What you need to do is free up interest rates. Interest rates are the price of money, and we shouldn't have price controls on the price of money.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. Carson, you told the Des Moines Register that you don't like government subsidies. It interferes with the free market. But you've also said that you're in favor of taking oil subsidies and putting them towards ethanol processing. Isn't that just swapping one subsidy for another, Doctor?
Well, first of all, I was wrong about taking the oil subsidy. I have studied that issue in great detail, and what I have concluded is that the best policy is to get rid of all government subsidies and get the government out of our lives and let people rise and fall based on how good they are. And, all of this too big to fail stuff and picking and choosing winners and losers, this is a bunch of crap. And it is really causing a great deal of problems for our society right now. And it goes back to the whole concept of regulations, which are in everything. The reason that I hate them so much is because every single regulation cost in terms of goods and services. That cost gets passed on to the people. Now, who are the people who are hurt by that? It's poor people and middle class. It doesn't hurt rich people if their bar of soap goes up 10 cents, but it hurts the poor and the middle class. And Bernie Sanders will tell them that it's because of the rich. Well, I'll tell you something. You can take everything from the top 1% and you apply it to our fiscal gap and you won't even make a dent in it.
Thank you, Doctor. Becky?
Rick, thank you very much. Governor Huckabee, you have railed against income inequality. You've said that some Wall Street executives should have gone to jail over the roles that they played during the financial crisis. Apart from your tax plan, are there specific steps that you would require from corporate America to try and reduce income inequality?
I don't think it's so much about when the government orders a corporation to do something. In fact, that's part of the problem. If you saw that blimp that got cut loose from Maryland today, it's a perfect example of government. I mean, what we had was something the government made, basically a bag of gas that cut loose, destroyed everything in its path, left thousands of people powerless, but they couldn't get rid of it because we had too much money invested in it, so we had to keep it. That is our government today. We saw it in the blimp. That's exactly what we saw.
So look, corporations ought to exercise some responsibility. When CEO income has risen 90% above the average worker, when the bottom 90% of this country's economy has had stagnant wages for the past 40 years, somebody is taking it in the teeth. And it's not the folks on Wall Street. I'm not anti-Wall Street, but I don't believe the government ought to wear a team jersey, pick winners and losers. The government ought to wear a striped shirt and just make sure the game is played fairly. Now, everybody else has fudged their time and gone over, so please, don't cut me off too quick, Becky.
All right, Governor.
Let me just close it up.
How about
this
15
way.
more seconds?
We need to be focusing on what fixes this country. And I'll tell you one thing that we never talk about. We haven't talked about it tonight. Why aren't we talking about, instead of cutting benefits for old people, cutting benefits for sick people, why don't we say, let's cure the 4 big cost-driving diseases,
Governor.
diabetes, heart disease,
Governor,
cancer,
sorry.
and Alzheimer's. If you do that, you don't just change the economy, you transform the lives of millions of hurting Americans.
Governor, thank you.
Gosh, I'd love for us to talk about
Governor, thank
something
you.
like that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. John?
Governor Bush, the tax reform bill that Ronald Reagan signed in 1986